And of course, the new Mars sign is very different. You see, Mars in Capricorn, well, Capricorn is an earth sign, and so it was good for technical achievements and so forth. But Aquarius is an air sign. And so Mars will be manifesting in your life in a very different way, inventive, problem solving. Look out for this and make sure to catch up on the rest. Another feature is that Mars enters Shatabhishak Nakshatra from November the 17th. Shatabhishak Nakshatra is, I feel, an odd energy. Its symbol is a circle. These people are often very sort of determined and, put a circle round themselves and say, that's my life and I rule it. And Shatabhishak is ruled by Rahu. So its utterance can be very decisive, if not driven. And now Mars will enter Shatabhishak Nakshatra. Well, of course, Shatabhishak is the sign meaning 100 healers. But they aren't, as it were, natural healers. Many of them become healing orientated because they have to heal the difficulties and defects of the sign itself. But Mars is where we put our energy, so there could well be energy put into healing, bigger time, whilst Mars is in Shatabhishak Nakshatra. And the big thing is that Neptune is at 19 degrees Aquarius, and Mars gets to 16 Aquarius by the end of the month. Well, what is Mars-Neptune combination? What comes to mind? Well, certainly intuitive and visionary, and can be the liar, but also it can be an inability to direct the will, a misuse of physical energy, self-destroying even, moody and irritable. Mars-Neptune is a complicated combination, and they will be increasingly together in the heavens as November progresses. Okay, let's move to Jupiter. Well, Jupiter is in Vedic Scorpio for the whole month of November 2018. Jupiter starts November at 4 degrees Vedic Scorpio and ends it at 10 degrees Vedic Scorpio. In fact, Jupiter is in Vedic Scorpio from October the 11th to November the 3rd, 2019, except for a brief blip from March the 29th to April the 23rd, 2019, when Jupiter just goes over the border into the next sign, Vedic Sagittarius, for those brief few days. And of course, at all that time, when Jupiter is ending Vedic Scorpio and starting Sagittarius, it's in the Gandanta zone, the zone of impermanence, of the dissolving of the material world, but the opportunity of great inspiration from the realms beyond. Bad for issues of this world, but if we can work on these, good for inspiration. So read the blog about Jupiter, and I also mentioned that while Jupiter is in Jyesta Nakshatra at the end of Vedic Scorpio, although it's an arrogant energy, it can be well focused on secret knowledge, death and rebirth. Okay, let's move to Saturn. Well, Saturn starts November 2018 at 10 degrees Vedic Sagittarius and ends November at 13 degrees. But note that on the 27th of November, Saturn moves from Mula Nakshatra at the beginning of Vedic Sagittarius to the next nakshatra, Purva Ashada nakshatra. And the change is big. You see, Mula is ruled by Ketu. It starts off at the beginning of its space with the end of the Gandanta zone, the transition from Scorpio to Sagittarius. And Mula is ruled by the dark goddess Niriti, and she calls us to account, particularly, of course, when Saturn's transiting through Vedic Sagittarius. But on the 27th of November, when Saturn moves into the next nakshatra, Purva Ashada nakshatra, it's totally different, because Purva Ashada is ruled by Venus, and Saturn gets on with Venus so much better. So it's important to note, where your own sun and moon are, for example. So if you have moon in Purva Ashada nakshatra, you're in the very middle of Sade Sate, and you absolutely need to know what that means. The 7.5 year period when Saturn transits over your natal moon. It's mapped by 3 signs: the sign before your moon, the sign of your moon, and the sign after your moon. But it's also more accurately mapped by the passage of Saturn through the nakshatras on either side of the nakshatra occupied by your moon. And it's so worth getting a reading if you are at the beginning, middle or end of Sade Sate, and there's usually a sting in the tail at the end. But the other big case is if your sun is in Purva Ashada nakshatra ruled by Venus. Now, I've known many cases, and generally speaking, when Saturn goes over your sun, you either experience, well, if you're of not such good consciousness, and of course, you experience professional downfall and misery. But if you are seeking to heal and empower and connect with your destiny, I have seen magnificent cases of Saturn going over the sun, of golden reaping, of status and reward. So it's well worth assessing how you stand in your life if Saturn is now approaching your sun, if you have sun in Purva Ashada nakshatra at the end of Vedic Sagittarius. Oh yes, and most importantly, Pluto is already there in Purva Ashada nakshatra at the end of Vedic Sagittarius. And so the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is growing, and that is so powerful. Negatively, I feel it's cold-hearted and implacable. It's hard labour and cold endurance. But positively, Saturn forms a physical crucible for the explosiveness, the death and birth explosiveness of Pluto. And so it can be extremely healing and empowering. And it becomes exact in January 2020. Uranus. Well, just to reiterate that Uranus is opposite Venus at this time. And be aware which of your natal planets Uranus might be aspecting. So that, you see, Uranus is at 6 degrees Vedic Aries, ending the month at 5 degrees Vedic Aries. So if you have planets in early Vedic Libra, you are experiencing the wild card. And indeed, Uranus has been activating that area for a good couple of years. Neptune. Well, basically, Neptune actually goes on station in November. So Neptune starts November retrograde at 19 Vedic Aries and turns direct during November to indeed finish November still at 19 Vedic Aquarius. Did I say Vedic Aries before? I meant Vedic Aquarius. So this means Neptune is on station. And so if it's forming an aspect to one of your planets, its effect will be ingrained, deep and powerful, because the slower a planet's apparent velocity in the heavens, the deeper it ingrains its nature and effects. So just to mention that Pluto starts November at 24 degrees Vedic Sagittarius and ends November at 25 degrees Vedic Sagittarius. Okay, Chiron is immensely powerful. We do need to understand our natal Chiron. We do need to understand the way transiting Chiron is affecting us. We do need to understand the way transits affect our natal Chiron. And basically, Chiron starts November at 5 Vedic Pisces and ends November at 4 Vedic Pisces. But interestingly, in terms of the Western tropical zodiac, Chiron actually drops back into Pisces from September the 25th, 2018 until February the 18th, 2019. Now Chiron's orbit is 50 years, so Chiron won't return to Western Pisces again. And I actually feel this last retrogradation will be important. You see, Western astrology, using the tropical zodiac, depicts things psychologically. And so our Western birth chart describes our psychological self, our egoic self. And even karmic things are described in terms of our psychological reaction to them, as opposed to Vedic astrology being a destiny and life purpose statement. And the reason for this is because, of course, the tropical zodiac of Western astrology is based on the position of the sun on the day of the vernal equinox. And the sun is our egoic self. And so the whole of Western astrology, using the tropical zodiac, is really a statement about our egoic self. And so I feel you need to watch out for really powerful feelings and sensations and intuitions about your existential wound when Chiron drops back into Western Pisces and won't do so again for 50 years. And incidentally, Jupiter recently went over my natal Chiron. I have Chiron conjunct Mars, and so strongly there came into my life that part of my existential wound, which is Chiron conjunct Mars, only ever seeing my father once and having a weak and deceptive adoptive father who was destroyed by his wife, who wanted to wear the trousers. And that is how my existential wound manifested. But so strongly did it come up for healing as wonderful Jupiter went over Chiron a couple of weeks ago. And of course Jupiter's now going to go over my natal Mars any moment. Okay, just to move on to Rahu, the North Node. Well, Rahu is at 6 degrees Vedic Cancer in Pushyami Nakshatra. So if you have like ascendant in early Vedic Cancer, in Pushyami for example, well, you will be driven to express yourself. And of course the nodes always retrograde, and so indeed the nodes will soon transition into Vedic Gemini. And then I'm buying earplugs. Okay. Now Ketu, of course, is transiting in Vedic Capricorn. And remember, the energy of Ketu is essentially immaterial. Ketu brings things from past lives. It depicts where we land in this life. It's personified as the occupying army. And when Ketu is active, past life scripts and past life people come into our life. And the Ketu acts for spiritual purposes. So any planet conjunct Ketu is sort of, in material terms, trashed. and weakened. And a transit of K2 brings dissolution of worldly circumstances. Indeed, K2 to Moon transit can bring ill health or difficulties for the mother, or the death of the mother, for example. Had several cases this year. But always, K2 offers us spiritual realization. That is K2's nature. So at the end of the blog is a Vedic Ephemeris for 2018. Obviously the writing's very small, but you can increase the size of the picture on your screen if you're using a laptop. And then there are the Western charts for the first and end of the month. We've already had higher up in the blog the Vedic charts for the first and the end of the month. And then there is the Western Ephemeris for November. Next is the new moon chart for the 7th of November. And then the full moon chart comes next for the 23rd of November. So basically, several things. Well, first of all, get in touch with me for a reading. And so that is my Star Wheel Astrology website. It would be wonderful if you want to pursue a course with me. So my foundation Vedic astrology course is called Master Vedic Astrology. The next course up is my Nakshatras course. And then there are a number of advanced courses. You know, for example, I've just been doing working with a group, working through the Vargas. And I am so impressed at the way each Varga chart tells us something utterly wonderful about a particular area of our life. I am so impressed at the insight offered, you know, for example, as to the nature of our superconsciousness and its purposes in manifesting with our incarnational life this time. You know, just so impressed, for example, at the statement of what is our ideal spiritual path. So helpful to have it said. There's also a wonderful Western astrology course at 2 levels, and with both the Western course and the Vedic course, you're welcome to cross over into the other if you wish. So if you're pursuing the Vedic course and want to know, you know, something important about like the Western planets, well, that's perfect. If you're pursuing the Western course but want to know Vedic insights relevant to your chart, that's wonderful too. Maggie's healing website is www.maggiepashley.com, so the link is at the end of the November blog. And do watch out for the follow-up posts for November astrology. So for each of the constituent items on this main November blog, there's an expanded item giving you more information and more charts. So I hope this has been valuable. I feel there's real wonderful pointers to understanding and to being able to decide on strategies on the base of that understanding. You know, I'm very impressed at the energies offered this month, and I hope sharing these with you will be of value. So look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.